What an incredible night in Newcastle, England at Virtu Motors Arena. The first ever PFL Europe event. I'm almost speechless, but I'm Sean O'Connell, so I'm never actually speechless. Dan Hardy, Stefan Struve. I don't even know where to begin, so let's just start with the start. We had showcase bouts, right? That were just supposed to kind of tease you, whet the appetite a little bit. Incredible action in those fights.
The first fight was absolutely wild. We got 15 minutes of absolute war. Lewis Monk and Owensworth just gave it everything they've got, but then that next one, 21-second knockout, Louis Lee Scott, set the stage for Manchester top team to take over the rest of the show.
And set the stage, I think, is the right way to describe that. Stefan, we're 2 fights in. There's already been incredible excitement, incredible back and forth action. And I'm thinking to myself, if this is what undiscovered European talent looks like, we are in for a hell of a show tonight.
Yeah, and these were only 2 divisions, so lots still coming, so can't wait for that. But I can't think of a single fight that did not deliver. We had razor-sharp decisions, we had finishes, we had everything. Unreal.
We really did have everything. So women's flyweights and men's light heavyweights taking place in the season fights tonight. Remember, PFL MMA and PFL MMA over here in Europe, it's the only mixed martial arts organization with a real sports format. So you've got a regular season, that's tonight, and in Berlin in July. And then you've got playoffs in Paris and a championship in Dublin. Dan Hardy, remind me, as president of fighter operations for Europe, what's the prize for a PFL Europe championship?
It's $100,000.
That's a sexy little prize if you can win 3 fights this year. The fighters know the schedule. They know what's going to happen. Win in advance, lose, and you go home. So the women's flyweights jump in the cage, and right away we see what it's going to be and how hard fought these contests are going to be.
They were all really, really razor close. I mean, every single one of these women's flyweights, aside from Dakota, obviously, who was very dominant, it could have gone either way. You know, you add another round onto those and the fight sway back and forth. Cornelia Home with that up kick. Would she have got the finish if 10 seconds more was on the clock?
I think yes.
Absolutely, she would have done, according to her. I mean, they were just great performances. And even the people that didn't come off on the winning end, I still expect big things from them. They gave great accounts of themselves. I'm proud of every single one of the athletes on this card tonight. They all made this a special, momentous occasion.
I'm glad you talked about that, because we saw Lizzie Havish, right? Fellow countrywoman of Stefan Struve here. She had an incredible fight, and I think if we go back and watch that again, I mean, in the moment, I thought she had done enough to pull off that fight. Yep. She loses the razor-thin split decision. Going back to the drawing board after a fight like that, what does she need to do?
She definitely showed development in her striking, which is very promising, because she is a judoka. That's her background, and she wasn't able to be successful with that today because her opponent knew that she was going to try that. But she showed distance control, good striking, growth. Unfortunately for her, yeah, the judges decided that it was her opponent who got away. 3 different scorecards.
Yeah.
The judges didn't know either.
30-27, 29-28. One way, 29-28. The other way, yep. It's always difficult when you're talking about judging in the sport of mixed martial arts. And obviously the winning end of that, Italian representative now training at SBG headquarters in Ireland, Valerie Scazziti. This is a woman with a ton of power, and I love the aggression. Just gets her head down, bites on the mouthpiece, and goes.
I mean, you know, you do your research and you see how aggressive Scazziti is. She's always in her opponent's face, but usually the fights don't last that long. The question was, can she maintain that pace all the way through? And she just bit down on her mouth guard. She kept coming over the top and underneath. She kept racking up the point. She outstruck her opponent. She was able to push her around a little bit, and I feel like that's why some of the judges saw the fight in her direction. But honestly, I would watch that match every weekend over and over again. I just feel like that's a really good matchup. And I think, you know, the 2 women moving on are going to be a great bout as well.
So we get Italy representing, moving on into the playoffs. You get Sweden with Cornelia Holm. You already alluded to that. She had an incredible bout, had to overcome some adversity early, pushed her way through, almost got the finish at the very, very, very final bell. And then, of course, Dakota Ditcheva. Come on.
Oh, man.
As long as we're talking about these women flyweights. The striker, the undefeated kickboxing specialist, takes her opponent down, takes her Manson down. advances position, gets the rear naked choke.
Amazing. 8-0. Her progression is incredible. The sky is limitless, really, for her. You know, and what's important as well is that she's moved through. She's carried this weight. We saw the outpouring of emotions after the fight because, of course, this is a big fight week for her. Lots of pressure for a young fighter. And I think, you know, the media responsibility, the expectations, as soon as the fight was over and that pressure release was able to come out, she was in tears with joy and relief. And, you know, I expect her to go on and improve before we see her again in Paris. And we have got another female flyweight fight in Berlin. That'll be the 4th qualifier, so the winner of that will move through to Paris. And then we've got the complete bracket of 4 female flyweights before we decide the 2 finalists for Dublin.
So that'll complete the playoff picture at flyweight, that bout in Berlin, and we'll tell you who's doing that and what that looks like, obviously, when we get to July. So that's it for the women's flyweights. Now let's talk about my favorite division, the one I used to compete in, the men's light heavyweights. And I'm always gassing people up. I'm always promising maybe a little too much. Not the case tonight, though. These men's light heavyweights, they made me look really, really good. And Rami survives a big-time right hand, a big-time scare.
Oh, man.
Tests out the head kick. Head kick doesn't knock out Pervalescu, so he says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to dig to the body, and he drops it with the body shot, finishes it there.
Yeah, great work, great stoppage also from Mark Goddard there, and you could see that he wasn't focused on his opponent anymore. Yeah, beautiful work, man. It went back and forth. The action we got in those 2 minutes, whew, from both guys.
Yeah, unbelievable. Anthony Salomon, the last time out in a PFL Showcase bout, I'll be honest, did not look great. He was coming up from the middleweight. He looked hesitant. He wasn't fully grown into the light heavyweight body yet. I don't think his gas tank was where it needed to be. That was not the same Anthony Salomon who showed up tonight.
It wasn't, absolutely. He's packed on some muscle mass, but also he's put the conditioning in to make sure that muscle mass can work for 15 minutes if necessary. He looked imposing tonight, and that speed advantage is going to be the same in every one of these light heavyweight fights. He's a middleweight that's moved up. He's gained the weight, but he's still got the hand speed, and he showed it tonight.
And he was taking on a very big light heavyweight, a big, powerful guy. He threw him around, pulled him down into the clinch, uppercuts, knee, that finishes the show. So that gives us 2 finishes in the light heavyweight division. And then out comes Jakub Neto. This man from Slovenia, formerly a team handball player, spent about 9 years in the high-level professional development for that, and said, you know what, MMA is going to be my thing. And I think he's onto it. I think MMA is going to be his thing, Stefan.
I wonder how many guys are going to try a handball to develop that jab now, you know.
He drops his opponent with a jab.
The way he stepped into that, like you can see him load and then boom.
And equally impressive, right? I mean, we've all dropped people before. And sometimes you get a little overexcited and the ground and pound misses. He lined it up like a missile. He hit that one shot. That was it.
1 out of 1. I love that on the statistics.
On the stats, yeah. 1 shot for 1.
One ground strike landed. 1 ground strike was all he needed. The opponent is staring off into the lights. It's over. Another great stoppage. So now we have 3 finishes in the light heavyweight division as we head into the main event for the night. And smooth Simeon Powell overcame a little adversity. He gets the takedown. He moves in the mount. He can't get the finish. For some people, that's like an abandonment of strategy there. You say, I'm not going to do the takedown thing again. I got into the mount. I couldn't get the finish. He did it again in the second round. Tell us what happened.
It was straight to mount in the second round. He was working really clean strikes. He was looking to find his ways around the guard of his opponent. And, you know, we've got big finishers in the light heavyweight division, topped at the card by Simeon Powell, who, of course, he's a big finisher with strikes, but then he throws a curveball in there. He finishes with a submission. I mean, all of these light heavyweights on this card have got to look at this guy now and think to themselves, how do we approach him? Do we try and put him on the floor, or do we want to deal with him on the floor? It's a big question, and he's still young, still undefeated. He's going to be improving each time, so we see him out there.
And you're never safe. Less than 10 seconds.
Yep.
Muhammad Amin thought, you know what, I can ride it out. His coaches in the corner thought, just survive. I'm sitting here at the broadcast position. I'm thinking like, he can just ride this out. And Simeon Powell puts on the squeeze. As soon as he stands up, it's apparent that Muhammad Amin is unconscious. Technical submission victory, 4 for 4 on finishes in the light heavyweight division, and a really fascinating playoff picture set for Paris at 205 pounds. As long as I'm talking about Paris, take a look at the schedule here. Berlin is the second half of our regular season. That'll be July 8th at Verti Music Hall. Looking forward to a trip to Berlin. Bantamweights and lightweights taking center stage there. September 30th, that's the playoffs that all of these fighters are working towards. We'll be at the Zenith in Paris. And of course, everyone marching one step closer to a Dublin championship on December 8th. December 8th, we will crown PFL Europe champions. Dan Hardy, Director of Fighter Operations for PFL Europe, will be standing there shaking hands, kissing babies, handing out $100,000 checks.
Big checks.
And I will be sitting cage side with Stefan Struve, and I will be shouting invitations to the PFL global roster to all of our PFL Europe champions, because that's what this is all about. Moving, developing. This is a whole new system. I hope you understand what PFL Newcastle represents. It changes the game in European mixed martial arts. There is now a path for you through a regular season, playoffs, and a championship. All you fighters, call Dan Hardy. I'll text you his phone number, just ask. Thank you, Newcastle. PFL Europe, done.